Greetings! This is Griff Ruby with yet another Isaac Asimov short story installment. This one is found in the May 1955 issue of Astounding Science Fiction. However, neither the story nor Isaac Asimov's name appears on the cover. As usual, though, they are included in the table of contents. So you can see the story is named Risk, and it's Isaac Asimov. That's all that has to say. So let's take a quick look at what the story has to say. There's a little blurb here. The blurb reads, "It was guaranteed not to kill anybody, wouldn't harm a hair of your head. Of course, it did tend to turn you into a mindless idiot, but it wouldn't hurt you a bit." Illustrated by a guy named Frias, and it has some artwork, by the way. So this is the same guy at two different points in his life. A certain Gerald Black, who's the main character of the story. It also starts off with the three laws of robotics. 1. A robot may not injure a human being, or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. 2. A robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. 3. A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Handbook of Robotics. So they got this place here. This story is meant to be a kind of sequel, as it were, to Little Lost Robot. So I guess we've got the same place, and now there's a new issue. There's a robot brain that's kind of associated with an attempt to create hyperspace travel. Problem is, they've got things going from here to there, but, well, first you would go somewhere and come back in pieces. I mean, you send a piece of wire to the orbit of Jupiter and back, and it comes back as, little metal filings. Okay. Eventually, they got it that it would come back intact, and they could send an animal. But the animal comes back either dead or at least unable to take care of itself. In a manner not all that different from what happened if the weapon too dreadful to use got used on somebody or something. It becomes unable to feed itself, take care of itself, do any of its normal functions, and yet it's kind of still alive. Nothing about some separated spirit wondering, it can't do anything, it can think all these things, but can't, no talk of that. The animal comes back incapacitated, and God forbid such a thing should happen to a human being. We've got to get this thing totally solved before we dare send a human being anywhere this way. So they're trying to get this situation where, well, let's man the rocket with a robot. And they give the robot a simple instruction how to work this thing. You just pull this lever and it'll activate the hyperdrive. The hyperdrive will go there, and then it will take it right back. And that's when you are notified that you have returned, you will release the lever. And that's your instruction. Pull it as firmly as you can. Well, something went wrong. It didn't move. It didn't do anything. Or at least the ship didn't move. Nobody wanted to be in it or near it. And they were scared how much of surrounding space might be affected by this thing. And what if it came back and materialized not in its exact spot, but somewhere, enough to the side that could be where somebody might be. And nobody knew what would happen. We don't want to mess with stuff like that. So, and Susan Calvin's on hand because one of her robots is being used in this way that you got to understand. She doesn't really appreciate the robots being used this way. And then when they talked about sending in another robot to investigate, it's like, no. Because here's the thing. Nothing happened. Maybe some small thing could happen at any time. It's sort of like you watch the fuse go into the dynamite stick, all it, and you're waiting for it to explode. And it doesn't explode. And it doesn't explode. But all the time, you're very conscious that maybe something in there might still be sizzling away. might still yet set it off. Boom! You know? You don't know. Or not. So somebody has to go in to see what happened. What went wrong? Oh boy. And they won't send in a robot. Ah, no. Robot's too valuable. Too expensive. You know, we've risked one. You know, you're lucky you guys were able to talk me into allowing one robot to be released for this purpose. I am not allowing another to be put at risk. Then we have to send in a person. And the guy says, okay, I see what you guys are up to. Robots are more important than human beings. It's come to that. It has actually come to that. And I'll make sure everyone knows that. But the guy, Gerald Black, by the way, is the stucky with having to go in there. Oh, now, come on, if you make it out of this alive, you're going to be a hero. You're going to be a hero. Yeah, I'm going to, this dynamite seems to be a dud. But I'm going to be the one to see if I can figure out why it didn't explode. And just hope it doesn't explode while I'm in the process of putting it under a microscope to see if maybe it's about to explode or why it didn't explode or whatever. And that's a really scary thing. Because, he could be zapped really far into space and back again and would probably come back, like the weapon too dreadfully used has been used on him. And, he'd spend the rest of his existence, wetting himself and having to be fed and, like someone with less control over himself than a baby. And he is facing this terrible, terrible future if anything goes wrong. But they make him go in, and he goes in there, and he finds out what went wrong. Well, I'm going to share part of the solution to this. And the reason why he was sent in was that, let's see, we got a few more pieces of artwork. The other was this guy, you could see from the very scared look on his face, he's just been given the job of a lifetime, But here's a much more resolute Gerald Black. All right. He's looking at Susan Calvin with obvious contempt. Susan Calvin obviously thinks robots are less expendable than human beings. She said as much. Look at that very matronly, old elderly Susan Calvin, by the way. Look at her. She's really, look at all the wrinkles on her face. Okay. So, but it's still Susan Calvin. Oh, Susan. There's another picture of him holding up what looks like maybe that's the lever the robot was meant to pull and activate. And here's a picture of the robot all sitting in its place. And I don't know if there's any more artwork associated with this story or not. Maybe. No, there's not. Okay. So we have these bits of artwork. You've seen them. He gets in there, and it turns out actually there's a very good reason. Because robots may be very smart machines, but they don't really, they're not like human beings. You can't just tell the robot, go in there and figure out what went wrong, because a robot wouldn't know what to do. A human being might have some experience, might look around, might be careful. You have this whole story of step by step. He goes in there. He's afraid to shake anything, lest even just a vibration might shake something loose that suddenly causes it to go. So he's really going in this very slowly and with trepidation and so forth, risking his life, and he gets closer. Finally, he gets all the way in to the room where the robot is, and he looks around, and then he relaxes a bit. He knows what went wrong. He goes to another place, he damages a panel somewhere, now he can't engage. No matter what else happens, the hyperdrive is permanently disengaged. Alright, everyone can come. It's safe to come here. I've done my job, and I'm getting out of here. And you guys can look at everything else and figure it out for yourselves. I've done my bit for King and Country, and you guys owe me huge amounts of honor. And so two things come out of the story, which I will leave as non-spoilers. One is what exactly did go wrong, and two, how did Susan Calvin win him back over after having sent him in instead of a robot? I mean, yes, being able to explain that a robot wouldn't have been able to solve this is part of it, but there's more that she had to say. So, it's a good, solid, competent story, the kind of thing that would have gone into iRobot if it had existed, but it comes years later, and we're not going to revise iRobot, so it's just a standalone robot story, but it fits in there perfectly, a Susan Calvin story. It also got placed in the collection, The Rest of the Robots, so that's where it went instead of going into the iRobot, because it missed that ship had sailed, so it goes into the rest of the robots. Anyway, that's Risk. Sounds pretty risky. Thanks for listening.